Things are getting extremely tight in the dying stages of this season. In fact, in the case of the GTE fight, the points are tied for the lead. A bad blow today could put any of our contenders behind the 8-ball in the final few rounds. Will Montreal be so cruel as to bite one of our rivals? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 8 of the PRL LeMans Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Ryan Bauer, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is not one typically associated with multi-class racing. To find out more about it, let's head to our track guide. Welcome to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Host of the Canadian Grand Prix for over 40 years, this track's popularity among fans refuses to wane. Although it has gone through a few alterations in its history, the nature of its layout has remained pretty much the same. That nature, of course, is that its 14 turns are mostly chicanes, split up by long straights to add up to a 2.7-mile street course-like canyon of a track. These 4.3 kilometers are mainly made up of actual streets on the man-made Ile Notre Dame, though portions are specifically built for the racetrack. But whether or not fans consider it a true street course, the close barriers that line the majority of the track don't care what you think. Places like the exit of Turn 4 and Turn 9 frequently collect the greedy. But these pale in infamy to the notorious Wall of Champions. Named for its penchant to collect F1 World Champions, the corner itself is called Quebec. Regardless, it's a finicky and tight chicane with a critical corner exit, so drivers are tempted into edging the car as close as they dare to the concrete. Despite the numerous heavy braking zones, passing can be difficult at times for certain types of cars. Often, attrition or cut course penalties play a bigger part in who finishes where. While sports cars and NASCAR have both made stops here, this place is mainly known for its history with Formula One. Named after what is easily Canada's most popular driver in the International Open Wheel Series, this semi-temporary circuit looks like it's actually here to stay for a long, long time. Well, this is a track that is both loved by fans, well, and sometimes drivers. But DJ, I think this one should be an interesting one, especially with multi-class racing taking place.
You are certainly right, Joe. As you said in the top, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is not one that is usually prone to multi-class racing, and that's because it's kind of a street circuit. It is built on a semi-permanent basis. A large majority of this track does run on cycling paths and roads that are on the Ile de Montréal in Montreal. So, Ile Notre Dame, excuse me, in Montreal. But in terms of these multi-class fields, what's going to make things very interesting today is the relatively minimal lap times between these LMP2s and the GTEs. That is because we're not dealing with a lot of high-speed corners through here. It's a lot of low-speed chicanes, which minimizes the LMP2 drivers' amounts of downforce, which is traditionally what makes them faster. And as a result, it's going to put the overtaking of these slower GTEs at an absolute premium. It may look like it's easy to make a pass here, but it really isn't. There's only a couple of good overtaking opportunities. The two best really presenting themselves into the hairpin around that back end of the circuit and going into the Senna S, that tricky 1-2 complex right at the top of the lap. Trying to get a pass done through the chicanes in the middle sector is going to prove very, very difficult, whether you're working on a car in the same class or if you're trying to overtake a slower car. So I think all around, this is going to be very difficult for these drivers tonight.
Well, it certainly is going to provide a challenge if it's going on any of my experience around here. But today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net.
The PRL LeMans Series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebutkicker.com. Taking a look at the championship, starting off with the LMP2 Drivers' Championship here. Felipe Ruiz, 11 points ahead of Christophe Herbeno, still trying to recover from his penalty points, but he has been quick, and he's actually quick in qualifying and the warm-up here today. So he could eventually try and get ahead of Felipe if he keeps up his speed. Christian Eisler, though, he could be a wild card in this, not just because of his points, but because he also seems to have been quite quick lately, but just hasn't capitalized in the races. You never know when that might change. Karl Modoff runs fourth in the points, and he's only 5 ahead of Owen Watts currently. So that fourth place battle could easily change hands. Now, taking a look at the GT Championship, the Drivers' Championship here, Uthman Alawi and Stephen Ash tied on round 8, and there's only 2 to go after today. So, as I said, a bad day could really have big implications down the line. They have to keep up at the front if they want to stay in contention here. Michael Ross, 9 points back from them. He could still be a fly in the ointment with everybody behind them a long ways down. Rafael Russo, Tyler Dzube, and Francisco Montini kind of in their own squabble there from 3rd, 4th, and 5th. What about the 2 teams championships, DJ?
Well, in that LMP2 Teams Championship, it is a very similar story with Punto CL Racing and Delta Sport U4K really starting to pull away from the rest of the field. Now, Punto is obviously made up of Eisler, Ruiz, and Cal Quinn. Delta Sport being made up of Herbeno, Modoff, and Watts. So that's really developing into a 2-horse race with Punto CL starting to hold a little bit of an advantage. They're going to hope to solidify that today, but a lot more points to be had in this Teams Championship. You can see their NinjaTrader LMP2 a whopping 173 points back, all the way back in 3rd place, followed by Final Lap Team Yellow and SRT eSport Orange. But jumping over to the GTE Championship, it's a little bit tighter at the top. RSR by G Performance barely holding a 21-point lead over Frozen Speed Full Send Racing. RSR being led by Alawi and Ovando, Frozen Speed being led by Ash and Miller, so that battle very much heating up. And the battle for 3rd, very close as well, with SRT eSport Green just 8 points ahead of Vector by RSR, with Lockup Racing pretty fair to say out of the mix there, 131 points back.
Now, for today's event specifically, as I mentioned, we're in round 8 out of 10. There's the 2 classes that are racing, the LMP2 with the Dallara and the GTE cars, which has a few different makes drivers can choose from. It's a 60-minute event today, and it is open setup, but you can expect at least 1 pit stop for fuel, as they have limited the fuel cells compared to what the real cars run. Now, they do have some penalties. If they get too many incidents, they'll get a drive-through at 13, which is actually quite small. Considering how many chicanes are here, that'll be easy to trip over. Disqualification if you actually manage to hit 18 of them, and they work for bonus points as always for being good boys and girls out there. And right now the poll for each of the classes, that bonus point is currently going to Felipe Ruiz and Stephen Ash. Ruiz actually just snatched that away from Herbeno, and it has been tight between them, less than a 10th separating that pair in the LMP2 chase, as they've got, I think, about 1 lap left for each of them.
That's right, Joe, and that battle is unsurprisingly tight. There is very, very little to be lost and gained around the streets of Montreal as we ride on board with Felipe Ruiz, powering down that back straight next to the rowing pool there off to his left. Now he's going to dive it in here very late on the brakes. This is a deceptively fast corner, massive chunk of curving there. You've got to be careful about that. These LMP2s do not like to take too much curve. Here he comes to the line. Looks like he's going to be unable to improve.
And neither does Herbeno, so they stay 1-2. And unfortunately for Christian Eisler, he has abandoned his last lap, so he's not going to be able to keep the pole away from them. Stephen Ash, in the meantime, this will be his third timed lap around here with enough for one more go, but that one didn't count, so apparently having some troubles keeping it clean. He has a much more comfy margin to second place in his class. Michael Ross, a whole 3/10 and some change behind him currently.
He certainly does. And Joe, you mentioned a little bit ago that those off tracks can really catch you out. Now, this is not a track like Spa, for example, where running wide can really do it. But the problem here is if you lock up, if you make a mistake going into those chicanes, it is so easy to just clip over and run through that grassy section. And so that's what these drivers have to watch out for. As we watch Ash here working his way through the second and third chicanes, coming down again. There he goes. Taking the curb is very important all the way around here. You want to get big chunks of it no matter where you go. And then this is the all-important exit. He's got to nail the exit of the hairpin here to maximize street speed down the longest straightaway on the circuit.
And I can report that Michael Ross is taking part in his final lap. So Stephen Ash, if he loses the pole, it won't be to the 67. DeTulio is still out there. And he's got quite a ways to go to get up to him, unfortunately. So, oh, no, and DeTulio actually just abandoned his lap. So we're watching Ash to see if he can improve. And at this point, it'll mostly just be for an ego boost off of the wall of chicanes, wall of champions, and crosses the line. It does go quicker by about 2/10, extending it back up to 3/10 over Michael Ross. Now, what about his championship rival, Othman Alawi? Apparently not liking this track. He is down in fifth, and he's coming across the line now with his final lap in the 444. And he does not improve. That is not a good sign for the man who is tied on the points right now.
No, it is not. But the way that this circuit develops is it is very, very easy to get into a little bit of contact. And so if I'm Othman, starting as far back as I am, I may be a little cautious at the start, see if anything develops in front of me, and just sort of pick up the pieces to try to get any positions back on his title rival of Stephen Ash.
Russo was going to be our last driver to take a time, but he also wasn't happy with that last one, so he came on in. That means our grid is set here today, so let's go through the starting order with Felipe Ruiz taking the pole position and those valuable bonus points away from his title rival, Christoph Urbano, who qualified in second behind him. Christian Eisler will be starting in third with Horatio Calquin in P4. Then it's Owen Watts starting fifth and Tiensai Leighton in P6 with Carl Modoff starting in 7th and usually far down for Carl. Josh Wolf starts 8th, Ricardo De Matteo starts 9th, and Byron Daly rounds out our 10-car field in the LMP2s.
Starting off first in those GTEs will be Stephen Ash. Flanking him will be Michael Ross. Behind them, Francisco Montini and Alessandro DeTulio. Uthman Alawi, we talked about him a little bit earlier. He's going to be starting in 5th, followed by the other Montini brother, Federico, is going to be starting in 6th. Tyler DeZube, after a great run of races, starting a little bit farther down the field in 7th place, followed by Rafael Russo in 8th. In 9th will be Kenny Rodriguez, and Sean Romig will round out the top 10 of the GTEs. Then Ted Lowendick will be behind them, followed by Brian Borchi, and then Mac Miller and Brett Barrett will round out the rest of the GTE field.
It is a rolling start, so it'll be slightly different from what we see in things such as Formula One. And you can see the temperature's actually quite cool today, so it won't be too slippery. But DJ, I still have to wonder, are we going to see a similar situation to what we often see when the open wheelers come out here coming into the first chicane?
Well, with these temperatures as cool as they are, a 72-degree track surface, that is very, very chilly for these slick racing tires. So I think these drivers are going to want to be very, very careful. And if they are not, you could certainly see situations like we've seen time and time again of slipping and sliding down into that Senna S, that first complex. But we're going to have to see. The other thing to take into consideration is this rolling start does not include a full lap. They start about halfway down that backstretch, so there is almost no time to get these tires up to temperature.
Yeah, I have to wonder about that as they're just now taking off, and Felipe Ruiz leads them away down towards the Wall of Champions chicane. The Porsche pace car will peel off pretty early, so Ruiz pretty much has control of the field from there. Often we see drivers try to take off early just to get the pack thinned out and get the jump on everybody through that first set of S's. And there are the GTE cars behind them as well, already getting ready to go. They're going to have a trickier time because they'll essentially start before this chicane. There they go, single file, a couple of them, but he's going to check them up. He decides not to go. What's this going to do to the field? A few of them holding up behind him, but no contact, thankfully, as the green flag comes out and Felipe Ruiz is off. Christoph Herbeno already under threat. Eisler behind him taking a look, but they're going to stay single file. Battle for fourth goes side by side between Cal Quinn and Watson. A spin. That's Eisler going around, unfortunately catching a number of drivers out. Let's head to the GTEs.
Well, it was a mega start there from Stephen Ash, threading his way through those spilling LMP2s. Michael Ross behind him, Alessandro Di Tullio trying to fight off Montini, and that really cost him as Uthman Alawi already moving up a spot around Montini. He is up, but Stephen Ash controls the GTE field as we continue on lap 1.
Tullio got checked up, and then that caused a ripple effect with Tyler DeZube spinning the car in avoidance. And it looks like Tullio maybe has a slowdown penalty as he's still just bleeding spots. But meanwhile, we're looking at the front of our LMP2 field. It is Ruiz ahead of Herbeno, and now Owen Watts is up into third after that mistake from Christian Eisler.
Well, you talked about it, Joe. Those cold tires, they are getting onto the power a little bit too early. That just causes those rear tires to spin with not enough grip and or heat in them. But now Herbeno trying to claw back in on Felipe Ruiz. You can get a good draft going down this back stretch, but it is only a one-way ticket through the wall of champions, so you've got to be very careful about trying to make a pass.
Sadly, Cal Quinn had to take a tow because of the damage of that incident. Both other drivers were able to continue on. Completing lap 1, Ruiz ahead of Herbeno, ahead of Watts, Modoff up to 4th, and Layton into P5.
And those LMP2s are starting to spread out a little bit. I think after the kerfuffle in that first corner, everybody is just trying to be a little bit safety conscious. We follow Stephen Ash here, your GTE leader. We were right on board with Francisco Montini trailing behind Michael Ross. Montini being able to keep that start well, but he's got Uthman Alawi hot on his heels as well. So this battle for third in GTE really turning into a train.
That battle's good news for Stephen Ash for sure, because he wants to continue to extend this lead. Alawi has got to make quick work of guys like Montini and Ross, and though he takes a look down into turn 6, he isn't able to execute here. He still has a lot of race to go, but he certainly doesn't want to give up any more time to the number 11.
No, he does not, Joe, but one of the things that we always talk about is the mind games that these drivers play, and that is a big thing to take into consideration here. Braking points going into these very slow corners are so finite that popping out like that, like Alawi did going into that chicane, can really cause a driver to lose his focus. There he goes again, but we're going to jump back. We got a battle up front.
Yeah, Herbeno lost his spot momentarily, I think, through the hairpin, and here he comes right back on Watts, and this brings Carl Modoff into the mix as we watch from on board the 14 coming down into the Senna S. He's not close enough, so Herbeno seems to have recovered from whatever plagued him a little bit earlier.
But look what that's done. It's really allowed Carl Modoff to close back up behind Owen Watts. Modoff wanting to get up with his Delta Sport U4K teammate. We've seen the two of them run together constantly, and we're trying to see him do it here.
Down into turn 6 one more time. Nobody able to really find anything. I guess the nice thing is that the lack of the need of the downforce means that following a car ahead should be a little bit easier. Look at this, though. This is Montini ahead of who we're riding on board with. Uthman Alawi still sitting in 4th, still plugged up behind that 611. They hit the braking for turn 6 once again, and he just can't get close enough, it seems.
No, he can't, but he had a good look coming down the pit straight there. Alawi did, once again, diving out to the outside, trying to set himself on an alternate angle. Looks like Alawi may have the speed down the long straightaway section, so we'll have to see how that plays out for him. And
this is all before they get caught by the lapped traffic, so when they start to get LMP2 cars through. I wonder if that will change the complexion of things. They will get at least one of them behind them soon. Christian Eisler, who is trying to recover from his opening incident. In the meantime, we once again take a look at the 948 as he rides up close behind Owen Watts. Starts to lose out a little bit coming out of the Senna S through 3 and 4. Is this going to do anything for him? Not quite.
Yeah, it looks like he's having to fight the car a little bit at corner exit. You saw that bit of opposite lock he had to put into the car. Let's watch him come through here through 6 and 7. Yeah, still a little bit of wiggly out of that back end. That's what happens when you don't run a whole lot of downforce around this track, is it can really come back to bite you. You've got to do a lot of work on the exits.
So those two once again out of turn 9 down towards Lepingle. And up ahead of them, Herbino, as I mentioned, seems to have really recovered. It must have been some sort of small error that slipped him up and allowed Owen Watts to get by, because since then he's already extended it to about 1.1 seconds. Moldoff with a decent run, but I don't think he's going to get enough slipstream to make anything out of this. So we take a glance down at 7th. Ooh, this one is tight with a look to the inside on Kenny Rodriguez. That's Sean Romig in the 71. He's got to be careful. DeTulio, who is slightly out of position, remember, is already spying opportunities as he watches that green and black Porsche weave back and forth looking for a chance to go by. If he gets a poor exit, I'm sure that Corvette will be pouncing.
I'm sure it will indeed, but it looks like DeTulio didn't get the better exit out of the corner, and instead that's going to go to Sean Romig, now trying to get a good draft behind Kenny Rodriguez. But even there, it doesn't look like they're really able to get it and maximize it as they start to break into the wall of champions chicane. Nobody looking out for a move.
What about the exit off the corner? Ooh, Romig does not look hot there. DeTulio is very strong. And as they come up towards the Senna chicane, he actually takes a little bit of a look, but it can be hard to execute a pass there, and that one will not bear fruit.
And Joe, jumping you around just a little bit, Uthman Alawi finally got past Francisco Montini for 3rd place in the GTEs just up the road. These guys got a good exit out of the Senna S and made the pass coming down into 3 and 4.
You can see he's still hot on his heels. Let's hold on this just to see if he tries to fight back, but nope, looks like a poor exit off of turn 7 will not give him the opportunity. Let's go back and take a look at this overtake, see if we can dissect exactly how Alawi made this work.
Well, here we go, jumping back to the replay. You can see a good run there off of the wall of champions. Alawi just tucking behind in the draft. Now he goes to the outside here of this first corner, but that is going to put him along the inside of that long right-hander, and bada bing, bada boom, it just pulls him ahead.
And Romig, if we stay on this replay, just unfortunately lost his spot because he had to take avoiding action. You're going to see it coming through, yeah, here pretty soon. It'll be out of turn 7. Here it is right here. Oh, excuse me, no, they're coming up to 6 right now, so a little bit after this. The car ahead, that is Kenny Rodriguez, who unfortunately is going to outbrake himself, and the ensuing chaos opens up the doors for DeTulio, who's been waiting for a good chance, and he snatches it with both hands. Right there, oh, just a little too hot. Look at that, 3 wide and sneaks down through.
That's a big credit there to DeTulio, just playing as a heads-up driver, knowing exactly when to take opportunity. That's how you've got to do it around a twisty circuit like the circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, as we ride on board now with Francisco Montini, watching Uthman Alawi start to disappear ever so slightly out of that front windscreen, but Montini doing a good job of keeping him within his clutches.
Certainly. Well, Alawi, unfortunately, is not really putting on much of a hassle for Michael Ross. It's 3.1 seconds right now up to that Ford GT, the lone Ford GT that we have out there, faring quite well as he has been in many of the recent races. Switching back, though, we take a look at our leader here. This is the 58 of Felipe Ruiz. with a 3.5-second lead over Herbino. And again, critical moments for Felipe. He's got 11 points over Christoph, but Christoph has been quicker than him in a lot of recent rounds. So he certainly can't afford to lose too many points in the final few days, final few weeks of this. Oh, and we had an incident behind them. Oh, and Watts just got turned around by Karl Modoff.
He did indeed. I think Watts braked a little bit earlier than Modoff was anticipating, and great sportsmanship there from Karl Modoff, letting Watts go by ahead of him on track. We watched the replay here coming out of the 8 and 9 chicane. You'll see it as they line down into the hairpin. Modoff just gets into the back of Watts. I think a little bit of miscommunication on braking. Watts gets into the grass. There you see it, just tick onto the brakes. It looks like Modoff may have locked up ever so slightly, and you see him stop here and let Watts continue on ahead of him. Once again, great sportsmanship from Karl.
Especially considering that cost Karl not just the position back to Watts, but Leighton got by, Daly also went by, and that demotes Karl down to P6. Meanwhile, looking a little farther back in the GTE category with Brian Vorche up ahead of Miller, Lowendick, and Rodriguez, along with Tyler DeZube. So wow, a 5-car train essentially, all battling for 9th position. A lot of wheel spin from Brian. That could have opened things up, but he did a fantastic job managing that. It doesn't look like Mac Miller is as close as I would have expected.
No, nor would I. You see these guys now in this big train. This is going to help the guys behind them do a little bit. There you see, that's Miller thinking about going to the inside, decides not to do it. They're all going to go single file, taking a big jump out of the curb around the wall of champions. That separates them out ever so slightly. Looks like Lowendick now may be susceptible to a pass by Rodriguez if Rodriguez want to go for it, but no, they stay single file going into 1 and 2.
And no change for position here, and this is one of our best battles on the track currently, out towards turn 3. And that 33 gets himself a handy gap from those last few corners, trying to distance themselves from the plethora of challengers behind him. This is important here on these heavy braking points into the chicanes, where if anybody's close enough, they could get greedy and try to snatch that 9th spot back.
They certainly could. Is that a slowdown there for Kenny Rodriguez pulling off to the side? Yes, it is.
Looks to me like it, at least. Unless he just didn't feel confident running ahead of Tyler DeZube. And I think DeZube is his teammate. So that actually might have been a team call. And up in front of them, Lowendick taking a peek on Mac Miller, but it doesn't stick. So he'll stay back in 11th place. But yeah, I almost wonder if that's just a team call and the 13 was allowed by Rodriguez.
I think it may be, Joe. As you see, just looking at my live timing and scoring page, there's already about a 0.7 of a second gap developing between those two drivers. So I think that's Kenny just thinking, you know what, I don't really have the speed to pull this out. Go ahead, buddy.
Waiting to see what he can do. And it's starting to break up from a 5-car fight to 3 and 2, but they are being joined by our leader in the LMP2s, Felipe Ruiz, already having to pick and choose his way by carefully. It's extra perilous here today with the street course-like nature of this place, and the walls oh so close.
Well, and especially with as loose as we have seen these LMP2s coming off of corner exit, Felipe Ruiz just absolutely going for it, getting around these cars. He's going to throw that, I believe it's Ted Lowendick, slightly offline. That may put him in the clutches of DeZube, but here comes Ruiz by again. That is him going by Mac Miller and Vorche. Let's see, he's got it nice and clean. But that has allowed for, that is Herbino to catch up ever so slightly, Joe.
Yeah, 2.5 seconds now between them as they come down to Lapingle one more time. Ooh, and Ted Lowendick, once again, he's been getting a lot of hassle from DeZube's Porsche. He might have a great run here, I think, and you can see the fight in front of them as well. So we have 2 pairs of battles between Miller and Vorche, as well as Lowendick and DeZube. Are either of them going to change positions? The one in front, Miller, has the inside. but he's not brave enough on the brakes. He backs out of it. No change of position between any of the four.
All right, interesting. It's certainly not for lack of trying, but these drivers just absolutely going at it here, making things really interesting. And the one thing I do want to mention very quickly about being in a draft train like this, Joe, we haven't talked about it yet. There is not a lot of opportunity to fuel save on this track. It is one of the most wide open throttle circuits that we have on the iRacing service. And so if you are tucked up behind somebody in the draft going down that back straightaway, it is really your best and only opportunity to try to do a little bit of fuel saving. So that could start to enter into some of the strategy here.
So who is thinking far ahead at this point? Because we're only 15 minutes in. So we watch two of our leaders still tightly packed together here between Montini and Alawi. Francisco, ever since being passed, has done his best to at least keep Uthman honest. And bad news for the 444 is that he's actually losing time to Michael Ross, the second place driver in front of him.
He is indeed, but I really have to give massive credit here to Francisco Montini, doing a great job of sticking up behind the back of Uthman Alawi. I thought for sure that was going to be a little bit different when Uthman got around him.
Oh, we got to go back to Dzube and Lowendick. They're side by side. Teddy's to the inside as the orange and black number 13 sends it in deep and way too deep. He noses it into the tires. And unfortunately, what looked like a position for him has turned in instead to him facing the wrong way and having to wait patiently to get it going.
And we jump back to the replay here. This is a great little moment. Tiensai Leighton picking his way between the two of them that allowed for Dzube to start to get the run here. You see him on the outside carrying a lot of speed, tries to get on the binders and just carries too much speed into the corner, climbs over the curb, and that sends him into the wall of champions.
Well, that's our first victim that we've seen so far of that notorious chicane. Dzube is actually still running, but he falls to last in his class. In fact, we've only lost one car, and that's Cal Quinn from the opening race wreck. Everybody else is still out there and going. We're on board with Felipe Ruiz, and just shows you how hazardous it is behind some of these GT cars, having to get right up on top of them.
It really, really is. We don't necessarily tend to think of Canada as one of the more narrow circuits on the racing calendar, but Joe, it really and truly is very perilous to try to get by somebody here. It is very, very tricky no matter which way you slice it, so it is an extra hassle for these LMP2 drivers trying to get around the slower GTE guys today.
Well, while he continues to extend his gap, driver that we've touched in on here and there that's looking to recover is the number 20. DeTulio has now caught up to the back of Federico Montini. Here we ride on board with him now, looking at the number 5 Porsche coming through turns 3 and 4. Montini having unfortunately suffered a little bit of issues on the opening lap, heading towards the back of the field, has got himself at least up to 6th.
He's continuing to try to push his way up forward. There you see him just nosing to the inside ever so slightly, trying to minimize the amount of track he is taking as he works his way through that soft kink. Now, they do have Tiensai Leighton and Owen Watts coming up behind them in the faster LMP2s. You can see Leighton there out the back of Montini's car. So that could throw a bit of a wrench in the works for these guys as they dive onto the binders now through the hairpin. There you see DeTulio start to catch up. They're going to spread out a little bit here. Looks like he doesn't quite have the maximum speed to be able to get him, but maybe Leighton coming into this picture could throw a wrench in the works.
He's coming up quick. Is he going to catch them before the chicane, and will it be both of them? He's going to get one. I don't think he's going to get two. He'll split the pair. Oh, but it puts him offline, just shaking Montini off of his concentration. And there goes DeTulio, once again, perfectly reading the situation for the second time in this race.
Most certainly. I think the driver with the most to do here today, Alessandro DeTulio, just absolutely perfectly aware of everything happening around him. That is absolutely brilliant.
We watch that from onboard Alessandro's perspective, because just as I said, reading it perfectly, it really amazed me that he was able to get through so cleanly and smoothly, just kind of anticipated where everybody was going to put their cars. This is onboard Leighton that we're looking at right now. Here's DeTulio's perspective. We're going to see Leighton's LMP2 flash by on the right side as they head up towards the braking. There he goes. Gives him space. And look at that. He knows to go shallow. How did he know that quickly to change his line?
I have no earthly idea how he was able to judge that right, Joe, but give that man a trophy, because that is impressive next-level driving from the Corvette driver here today.
Well, that's been happening. Owen Watts and Karl Modoff are now fighting for fourth in the LMP2s. Now they come along the rowing lake themselves, under braking down into the wall of champions. Man, they get so close to that wall with the speeds that they're taking. Modoff keeps himself safe and retains fourth for the time being.
He does. It looks like Modoff was just a little bit better on the brakes going into that final chicane, but Watts certainly keeping him honest. Now up the road, they will have Rafael Russo right up ahead of them. They're going to catch him, it looks like, right at about the braking point for turn 6. So that could throw a real problem here. Yes, indeed. That's going to hold up Modoff ever so slightly. Here comes Watts. Here we go.
Looks like he wasn't close enough, I don't think. Russo did hold up Modoff, just not the way that Owen was needing as they slow into turns 8 and 9. He'll have to stay put in P5. We're getting closer to that halfway mark.
We are indeed, and that means we're going to have to start thinking about pit stops. So we talked a little bit more about as here comes a battle shaping up once again. This is the battle we were following earlier with Vorchi, Miller, and Lowendick. The three of them just running absolutely close. And who is that going wide?
I didn't quite catch, but certainly looked a little hairy there, with everybody unfortunately catching each other in an awkward spot. Christian Eisler, who is so quick in the warm-up, is just struggling trying to overtake and lap these GT cars. Miller and Lowendick are now set into a nice fight because of that. This is for 10th in your GTEs as we watch from out of the back of the LMP2 of Christian Eisler. There we go, down to the inside. Miller, though, super deep on the binders. A little bit more successful than what we saw with Dzube, though, and he is going to be able to retain that 10th place over Lowendick.
He is indeed. And Joe, that corner, that chicane going into the Wall of Champions, it is so deceptive. Oh, there's a big lockup for Mac Miller, almost getting into the back of Borchi. I thought for a second that was going to pull him directly into the clutches of Ted Lowendick, but no, he is still considering right up the back of that number 33.
Oh, and it was a bad exit. Did Vorchi brush the wall there? That'll give the inside to Miller. He's got to complete the pass, though, as they send it into turn 6. Nicely done. Textbook maneuver for the 79.
Awesome run there for Mac Miller, and now Ted Lowendick wants some too. He is tucked behind that white 33 Porsche. Is he going to make the move going down into 8 and 9? No, it looked like for a second he was. They are all nice and clean, keeping it nice and tidy, but Lowendick still charging strong as they head to the hairpin.
He'll get another shot. Lepingle is a popular place for overtakes. Is he close enough? No. He just takes a little look and then comes back to the tire tracks of the 33. Here we go again. Off the corner, both of them trying to get as much traction as possible. And once again, Vorchi is going to have his mirrors full.
He is indeed. You saw Lowendick taking a slightly wider entry into the corner to maximize exit speed. Looks like it's working. He's going to poke his nose to the inside. Can he be late enough on the binders going into that final chicane? No, he is not. But Vorchi takes a big chunk of curb. That does not seem to hurt him. Vorchi able to hold off.
Well, great job from Brian for managing to keep from losing more than just that one spot, but I'm sure he's still unhappy about Miller managing to sneak through. In fact, he looks pretty clear at this point as they come out of the Senna chicane. And Vorchi's going to have to hope that maybe that Porsche is going to make a similar mistake. No, instead, once again, Brian, it just can't get turned 4 right, but Ted Lowendick is not as brave and doesn't pull up side by side.
No, he does not. It just doesn't look like he quite has everything completely under him. Mac Miller way more confident on the brakes, way more confident with his Porsche. Lowendick just not really getting it in there. He's making some good looks and some good moves, but he always seems to be just a couple of milliseconds faster to get onto the brakes, and it looks like as a result, he's not able to get the pass done.
Going back and watching both of those times, and Vorchi kind of had 2 different mistakes, it looked like. First time, he actually did give a slight brush to the wall, but nothing that seems to have caused damage. Second time, just a little bit too hot into there. As we now hop on board with Josh Wolf. This is a battle for 7th. De Matteo up in front of them. They both have to dispose of Francisco Montini, our 4th place in the GTE.
And they have both disposed of him. This gap has been slowly dwindling between Wolf and De Matteo. It's now down to about 0.8 of a second. Little bit of clear running in front of them, though. There you can see Wolf just slowly eking that gap in. A little bit of traffic accounting for that lap 2 gain, or lap 16 gain. But Wolf doing a good job. Now they're going to start to catch up to, I believe that is Alawi up ahead of them in 3rd.
Indeed, that is Utman, who has finally dropped Francisco after he was so close behind him. He's going to be put offline. This is going to be horribly awkward, unfortunately, for De Matteo. He's given enough space coming off the corner. Definitely slowed up both of those drivers. And is this going to be enough? Wolf is gaining. Nah, maybe not. I think maybe the 12 doesn't appear to be within attacking range.
No, not quite yet, but look how much he has been able to pull up behind him. And then once again, we see it on those corner exits. None of these cars really able to get the power down off of the corners to try to get the pass going through. So Wolf is going to have to try to wind this back up again and get it done on this next lap.
Now, the thing that Alawi's probably hoping for is up ahead. They've got Michael Ross, and they're catching him on the back half of the course, which means he could easily be held up as well, because there is a lot of chicanes here through a bit.
There certainly are. You see both of those LMP2s swinging that car wide through there. Now, they're going to be held up ever so slightly, especially, I think, De Matteo going to be held up by Ross. The no ball to the zone. Now it's up to Wolf. Wolf has got to get by before they get into this next sequence of chicanes. Looks like he is going to be able to pull ahead. Ross is going to have to be a little bit earlier on the brakes, make sure he doesn't hit anything. He does a good job there. So now it is clear, and that gap between Ross and Alawi still about 3.5 seconds.
Just not the gains that I think the 444 has been looking for. Same thing with poor Josh Wolf, stuck behind the number 46. They come around almost completing that halfway point exactly. One more lap, and I do believe they are going to be hitting that 30-minute marker. Meanwhile, what about Carl Modoff? Ooh, once again, dealing with a lot of looseness. I do suspect that he's got that 948 pretty trimmed out.
I think that is a fair assessment, Joe. You know, we were talking in the pre-race, just you and I, before we got onto the broadcast, talking about how you've got to run a low downforce setup around here because there's no real fast corner to maximize downforce on. So you really just want to try to get as much mechanical grip as you can and trim out the rest of the car to try to maximize speed. And you're really seeing on corner exit these drivers having trouble getting that power back on. Now, with this battle for third, Modoff trying to chase down Leighton, they've got to be a little bit careful. Owen Watts has been able to reduce that gap behind them to about 1.9 seconds. So if they're not careful, Watts will be up their tails here in a couple of seconds.
Both these drivers eager for a podium as they're fighting for that last step. They started in 6th and 7th respectively and have gained a lot just from a melee through the first couple corners on the very first lap. But now that it is there, they're trying to capitalize, coming off the wall of champions, and Modoff once again gaining hand over fist. And Leighton briefly defends, comes back to the racing line. Modoff tries to get his nose in, does scare him off the line. Both of them having to take evasive action to keep from losing the car. It was a valiant attempt. Modoff is going to have to re-rack and try again.
He is, but it looks like Modoff was just able to time that off of the wall of the champions absolutely perfectly. Now, positively up the gearbox here of Leighton. Pokes his nose to the inside again, just trying to scare him off. Carl is doing exactly what he needs to do, but the inside Leighton doing a fantastic job of just weathering the storm from that 948.
I'm sure longtime fans are going to groan at the same suggestion they hear from me a lot of times, but DJ, if I was Carl, I feel like at this point I'd start thinking pit stop, just see if I can jump him.
I think that may be about the right call there. You can see up the road that is Brett Barrett in the GTEs. Maybe try to get it right. Little bit of a narrow exit off the corner there for Carl. That's going to cost him a little bit of time. And Joe, the one thing to keep in mind is you can gain or lose a lot of time on this pit entry. It is very, very difficult, but if you get it right, you can gain a lot of time.
No pit stop this time through for Carl Modoff. He'll stay out. So does Leighton. Behind them, Owen Watts is watching. I'm sure he'd love those two to start fighting once again, because that'll quickly bring him into the mix. In fact, we watch from his perspective, seeing it's not too many car lengths up the road.
No, it's not. Watts has been able to get that gap down to about 1.2 seconds. So really taking some time out while these two squabble up ahead of them. Watts doing exactly what he needs to do, though. It's not overdrive the car. Just let it come to him. There they come around Barrett. That's going to throw everybody off a little bit. Barrett's going to catch out Modoff, though, coming through turn 7. And here comes Owen Watts.
Yeah, Barrett almost looked a little surprised there as he tried to turn into the corner, and suddenly there was an LMP2 down into 8 and 9. Once again, all of them pushing as hard as they can. Do any of them dare try to pit now to see if they can get a strategic edge over the other? Down into Lepingle, it's all going to be about accelerating off this corner, and a big slide from Leighton's not going to help that.
No, it's not, and here comes Modoff on a charge. He's got some good speed. He's about 2 miles an hour faster than Leighton as they head down past the rowing pool. Doesn't take the look, though, but Leighton gets a little bit of the grass there, I think. Modoff trying to maximize, but he gets a little bit of grass, gets a squiggly off of the Duala Champions.
Did he actually touch there? It looked very close. I think he did. Modoff actually did brush the wall. We'll get to the replay in a bit because he's still hot on the heels of Leighton coming off of turn 2 as they head down to break into 3. Yeah, he has backed off. Let's get another look at that incident here.
All right, so this is a good wind-up back. We can see that exit from Leighton coming off the corner that really set everything up. Just got a little bit of wheel spin. It looked like you can see the car starting to squirm a little bit under acceleration. But here comes Modoff. He's just got the power down. He is focused clear ahead on the car in front of him. We'll stay on board here, and you'll be able to see that car vibrate. Exactly.
This will give us a good shot of just how much he came up against it and left some paint. Here it is. Woo-hoo-hoo. Any harder than that, you're going to start to damage the bodywork of that machine. But he's coming around to it again right now. So let's watch and see if he's learned his lesson from that time. He's still got a run on Leighton. Leighton tries to defend initially, then comes back to the racing line. Modoff backs out of it.
He does, gets a little bit of a narrower exit there out of that final corner and keeps the pressure up. Here he goes, starts to look like he's going to go to the outside through turn 1, tries to stick it, now goes to the inside, trying to send Leighton off on an alternate line. He's going to try to go around the long way. That does not work, but that allows Owen Watts to get even closer. But here he comes trying to fight back into turn 3.
Takes a little bit of a look and then decides he can't make it happen. So he falls in line behind Leighton. Oh, here we go, and that will do it for sure. That is Vorchi just in front of them, being caught at the exact wrong moment for Leighton. He loses both spots very quickly.
Yeah, looks like Tiensai just had to back off a little bit, was too far committed, and a good job there from Karl Modov to box him in that position and give him nowhere to go but to lift off. So now Modov has got clear track in front of him to try to pull away, and now we're able to see what the true pace of Owen Watts is, if he is able to stick up behind Karl or if he was able to close just because of that battle up ahead.
It's a good question. He's holding with him for now. Doesn't look like he got a good enough exit off of Lepingle, though. And in fact, he's dropping back ever so slightly. So yeah, that one just not the traction he was hoping for. As that all was happening, I can report that Lowendick and Dzube came in and took scheduled stops. They are currently last in their field, but they are good to go to the end from here.
And Joe, that's what you like to talk about just diving in on that alternate strategy. I have to say that that's a really good call from both of those drivers. They are down in the field, but we ride on board right now with your GTE leader. This is Stephen Ash as he makes his way around Lepingle and starts to pull away a little bit.
Ash looking for win number 3 here today. He took a long time between his first 2 wins. Round 2 was where he snatched it the first time at Watkins Glen, and then of course last week at round 7 when we visited Silverstone. Can he make it a back-to-back and start to get some momentum going? Looking at the 58 in the meantime, our other leader, Felipe Ruiz, not as big of a gap as I think he would like. 1.7 seconds. Now he is out of attacking range, but we've seen traffic can cause issues, and well, as we know, small mistakes here can be extremely costly.
Exactly. This is good news for Christoph Herbeno and fans of Christoph, that he is just able to keep the pressure up on Felipe. There you see him able to get around that gate, ebbing and flowing lap after lap. It looks like, Joe, they are about evenly matched on pace. It's just a matter of when they're catching traffic, I think.
That'd be my assessment as well, honestly. And I do suspect we're getting to the end of that pit window, I would think. So we should see most, if not all, of our LMP2s pitting. Mac Miller decides that he's had enough, and the 79 is in pit lane to get his service to the end.
Bit of a reversal from what we're used to seeing of these LMP2s all coming in a little bit earlier than the GTEs, but clearly some of these GTE drivers trying to go for a little bit of that alternate strategy, just seeing what they can do as we ride on board here. That is Watts trying to chase down Karl Modov. Watts not letting the third place 948 of Karl Modov slip away, so kudos to Owen here.
And Modov, I doubt he's got enough time to chase down Herbeno unless he's got a whole lot of pace that he's been hiding. So at this point, his focus has got to be in the mirror to make sure that he puts enough of a buffer between himself and the 14. By the way, our leader just came in, and Herbeno's gonna follow him.
All right, there we go. As we keep our eyes peeled on Karl Modov and Owen Watts, we'll have to see if this is the very end of that window. Here come the leaders down pit lane, though. Herbeno looking like he was able to get a little bit of a better run down pit lane. Watts also in behind, but Modov staying out.
Well, that's not too shocking. Modov is known for his fuel saving. Sean Romig also pits. Leighton is in. Daly also joins. So we're seeing a majority of our LMP2 class taking to stops. I can report that Josh Wolf as well, and De Matteo also pitting, but Christian Eisler managing to stay out.
And it looks like our leaders are back and underway. Felipe Ruiz back under his own power, as is Christoph Herbeno. That gap, although it came down a little bit in on pit in, it looks like Ruiz was able to grow it ever so slightly, about 0.4 of a second faster in the box. That gap now looking like it's going to be about 2.3 seconds.
Indeed. So Ruiz does not re-inherit the lead with Modov continuing on, but he will soon enough, as so we've only got 2 cars that need to take pit stops here in that fastest class. So we watch the 58 bump over those curbs, And this is behind Kenny Rodriguez, the last of our GTEs. Yep, indeed, he's going to just make sure and stay off the left side here to give Ruiz an easy time by.
And Joe, I can report that Carl Modoff has ducked down the pit lane, so he is in right now, just watching to see if Eisler does the same.
Yep, and let's remember that Owen Watts was in a fight with Modoff, so that'll be important that Carl gets a quick in, quick out, and a clean stop. There you go. There's Eisler in.
He is locking up the brakes ever so slightly, getting that car down to speed as Modoff waiting in the box. We're seeing here about pit stop times around 20 to 22 seconds. Owen Watts making his way through the wall of champions as Modoff is underway. I think Modoff is going to have him if he can get up to speed in time.
He will easily. Wow, Modoff 2 seconds quicker in the pit stop, as well as just having a lightning fast in lap. This has been phenomenal from the 948 to snatch that third place away and put himself far, far clear from the 14. It just does not look good for Owen Watts if he wants to get himself on the podium again.
No, it does not. That gap has grown out to about 3.4 seconds between third and fourth place. But we're going to focus here looking at that gap up front. We were highlighting it earlier. It's starting to come down again, Joe. There you see Herbino just clawing him in. Gap now down to about 1.6 seconds between our first and second place driver.
We may have a fight on our hands all the way to the finish. Can Christoph keep up this lightning pace? He is hustling, as you could see the tail nearly scraping the wall on the exit of the final chicane. That time through, the comparison between the Maries at 25.6 with Herbino on a 25.7. So actually a tenth down. In the meantime, we're going to look at the battle for 11th in the GTEs. This is Miller trying to shake Lowendick.
Yeah, Ted's done a really good job here of just keeping up the pressure on Mac Miller. Now, both of these drivers have pitted, 3 laps difference in between their pit stops, but their time through the lane about the same, 42 seconds flag to flag. So, gonna have to see what they do as we've got some more GTEs peeling in.
That's Stephen Ash, I believe, for a scheduled stop. We should see more of them down the way. We've got about 7 or 8 that need to take service. Looks like Alawi's going to join, but we hop back on board with Herbino as he is looking for win number 5 on this season. Felipe Ruiz in front of him, just looking to get win number 3, and that won't even tie Christoph Herbino, but he does have the points lead advantage right now. So at this point, it'll be very important, as that did not look like a good run for Felipe through the final chicane.
No, it did not. It lost him about 6 or 5 tenths of a second, and now Herbino positively all over the back of Felipe Ruiz here, starting to really hustle that car. But Joe, we've seen time in and time out. Catching somebody on this Canadian circuit, very easy. Making the pass, not so much.
Yeah, I've noticed it seemed like a lot of the drivers are struggling today to make overtakes stick. For a track with a lot of heavy braking zones, I expected we'll see more chances to try and use the slipstream to catch up and maybe have a go at it. Not so. Still at about 7 tenths of a second. Herbino keeping that gap steady.
Yes, he is most certainly just starting to reel him in, but it looks like Felipe able to gain a couple of seconds back as they go through that second sector. Now diving into the hairpin, a little bit of GTE traffic in front of them. That may throw a little bit of a wrench into the works, but we will have to see how Felipe is able to dispatch of them and then how Christoph is able to do the same.
And that's what was our leader, Stephen Ash. Michael Ross currently leads, but he just pitted. Gets back to the racing line. You see Ash really doesn't want to give up time here. He knows he's in the middle of the pit sequence, and if he gives up too much, Michael Ross could try and jump him off the corner. He's left to his own devices finally, but Ross is still stationary and Ash is easily through.
Yes, he is. So that's going to be a bit of a relief there for Stephen Ash, as it looks like Ross is just now getting back under his own power. A 4-second longer stop there for Stevens, or for Michael Ross, rather. So bit interesting there. We'll have to see what that reasoning was.
Yeah, it's not a penalty, so I'm not sure why Ross was in for so long. That 4GT is unfortunately now 11 seconds actually back from Stephen Ash, as we are on board with Alawi, who's able to get by. He's been gaining slowly, and in the pit sequence he almost gets his spot, but elbows out for Michael Ross. He'll get himself into P2 once again. Let's get a replay on that. That was wow, robust defense, but I don't think Ross really did anything wrong.
I don't think he did either. We follow here. There is Ross coming out of the pits. You saw where Alawi was on your screen, so this is really going to be a power off of the corner here. This is a very tricky pit exit. It dumps you right back onto the main racing circuit. So here comes Ross. He's got the advantage here. Oh, you see, that is.
Wow, I had missed that wheel spin, and I must have looked away at the wrong time. That's what allowed him to catch up all the more, on top of just being quicker in the pit stops. Sees what may have been his only chance. Yeah, I think that Porsche just drifted a little wide on the exit, and there was only so much room that Ross could give him.
I think that's right. You saw that he was really trying to come into the middle of the track. Ross gave him a car width on the inside of that turn 6, and it just kind of a racing incident between the two, with the Porsche not exactly able to get the grip at once.
Also, Alawi almost lost the car in the Wall of Champions, managed to keep from hitting it, so he's back to 1.8 seconds. He's got some work to do. Instead, we've jumped up to our leaders, heading into Lepingle with only 14 minutes left on the clock. Ruiz is ahead of Herbino, and that's exactly where they started this race, but the fluctuation of this gap has been up and down the charts.
It really, really has, and a lot of that has to do with traffic, but I think a lot of it also has to do with Felipe Ruiz just getting the bit between his teeth on that last lap. He was about a 1/10.5 faster than Herbino. We'll see what the last lap times are as they cross the line here. It looks like on that, they are separated by 0.06 of a second. Ruiz just barely getting ahead, but we focus back on the battle for 9th and the GTEs. This is that battle we've been seeing a lot of, Lowendick and Miller.
This has been a good one here. Oh, and getting great traction off the inside. Ted Lowendick somehow with a shallower line and still managing to get the tires to grip as they both break into turn 8. Mac Miller's going to try and defend, and he'll do so successfully. This is fantastic stuff from the pair of them. Miller retains 9th. Lowendick settles for 10th.
Yeah, it's just been an absolute seesaw of a battle this entire race. Really, really good to see. We jump here to Joshua Wolf. This is the battle for 7th in those LMP2s. He is chasing down Christian Eisler.
And Wolf is, interestingly, exactly where he started this race. Eisler not so much. Qualified 3rd, only up to 7th. He must have overtaken Wolf recently, I think, because I remember he was behind both De Matteo and Wolf last time I looked. Oh, did Wolf just hit the wall? It looked very sketchy. I think he managed to stay off of it, it looks like, but the tail was definitely all over the place. Unfortunately, that cost him a little time, and now Federico Montini will cost him even more. Not for doing anything wrong, he just is unfortunately not where Wolf wanted him to be.
Oh, and Joe, you saw there again just how tail happy these cars are coming out of the corners. It looks like there was absolutely no rear grip whatsoever for them, but we focus back on our leaders here. This is Ruiz and Herbino. That gap now down to about 1.1 seconds, so Christoph's been able to pull a little bit more in here courtesy of traffic.
And there's some more of that traffic right there. Vorchi, who allows him through, and yeah, he sees the situation. He knows this is the leader, so he's not close to Lowendick anymore. He's going to let him go on by. Speaking of Lowendick, there he is with Mac Miller, trying to use the slipstream along the rowing straight, the rowing lake run here, up towards the Wall of Champions. Trying to get into his head now. Yeah, you are not even close enough, sir. That is some psychological warfare for sure.
Most certainly, but Joe, there you can see coming up behind, that is Ruiz and Herbino, so that's going to throw an added wrinkle. Here comes Lowendick to the inside on a super choreographed move, but once again, just playing those mind games. Now, he's got to be very careful here. The leader's right up behind him.
Oh, and that gap has now definitely gone away. Ruiz barely ahead of Herbino as it was down to 0.4 of a second. Oh, wow. Lucky timing for Ruiz, because Herbino suddenly sees the gap right back to where it was before.
You know, looking at that, I think Christoph could have gone for a move that was very late there going into 3 and 4. But discretion, the better part of valor. He just didn't want to risk it, and that cost him a bucket of time. The gap now back up to about 1.6 seconds.
And let's remember that part of the reason that Herbino is not leading this championship is he's already been penalized for some of his racing and had championship points taken away. So I think that must be in his mind, thinking I can't make those sort of moves, because if it goes wrong, I'll hand away more points. Taking a look at Alawi, who once again has to also put up with the lapping LMP2s. That's Byron Daly, just unfortunately compromising his line as close as he managed to get to Ross. He has to give up all that hard work and do it all over again.
He has just got to hope that somehow Byron is able to close down and slow down Ross up ahead of him, but it looks like that is not going to be the case. Able to get by nice and easy here, so now Alawi's got it all to do. We are down under 9 minutes to go, so Alawi's really got to put the pedal down if he wants to try to get that second place away from Michael Ross and his Ford GT.
And again, that'll be important, because he'd rather lose just a couple points than 5 or 6 points to our leader. Here's the lap gaps between Ruiz and Herbino over the last 5 circuits. Gaining, and then suddenly on lap 35, a whole second slips through his fingers, increasing it to 2 seconds between Ruiz and Christoph Herbino. 9 minutes left to go, less than 9 minutes. And he has got to try and run down that 58. That's going to be a tough ask, I think.
I think it is too. It's going to be very difficult, but we're now riding on board with Ted Lowendick. This battle between him and Mac Miller we've been following for most of the race. Can Ted be able to do this? Mac Miller has been able to weather the psychological warfare of Ted Lowendick thus far, but at some point I've got to think that Porsche in front of him, that 79, there's got to be some cracks in that mental facade.
Does he show his nose again? Gives a little bit of a peek. He's slightly offline, but nothing like what we saw before as they come off that last chicane. Boy, they really are bounding over those tall sausage curbs. And, oh, Lowendick, here we go again. He's just trying to weave back and forth, make sure that the eyes are darting of Mac Miller, maybe cause him to lose his braking point. Hasn't worked completely yet, but it's got him close a couple times.
It certainly has, and one thing I noticed with him there is that it actually didn't hurt him at entry, but it hurt Miller on exit. He got a little wiggly, but here we're on another battle. That's
just ahead of them, actually, and that is Vorchi and Dzube. Excuse me, behind them, rather. They're going to get lapped by Karl Modoff, a third place LMP2. Big wobble off of turn 7 there for Dzube, costing him some distance up to the 33.
And here comes Owen Watts behind them as well. So is this going to be a fly in the ointment? He is able to get on past Dzube, now trying to get by Vorchi before they get to the hairpin. Looks like he's going to be able to do it, but Vorchi's going to have to get on the binders a little bit early there. That's going to allow for Dzube to catch up. Now they're onto the loud pedal. Does Dzube have enough of a good run off the back? It looks like he's a little far back here.
He's still going to get the slipstream. And this is Porsche versus Porsche between the pair of them as they brake hard down into the final chicane. Once again, closing down that gap. And unfortunately, a bobble coming off of it means that Vorchi is under attack because here comes Dzube with an overlap down to the inside of the Senna S. Finishing up the pass into here is extremely tough. And this is why he's got to go the long way around to the second part of the corner. Can he get the traction down? Not quite. It's still going on as they head towards turn 3. It's just not going to do it, unfortunately, for the 13.
Absolutely excellent defense there from Brian Vorchi. That 33 just sticking to his line and having complete and total faith in the car to be able to hold off Tyler Dzube. Brilliant job there from him. And now as we get closer to 5 minutes to go, putting more pressure on Tyler Dzube to try to get this pass made.
Indeed. This is our closest battle on the track currently, which is for 11th in the GTE class. Our leaders have closed back in, but it's not worth going to for the time being. About a second and a half between the pair of them. We watch from Ted Lowendick now just in front, and they have gotten even closer, 0.3 of a second. And Federico Montini just ducked into the pits. We'll get to that in a second because here comes Teddy. Oh, but he runs out of straightaway.
But Joe behind them, Dzube and Vorchi side by side going into the wall of champions. Dzube late on the brakes. He's got it done.
Nicely done. Dzube slips into 11th. Will he get 10th? Because Federico Montini, well, I thought it was going to be a drive-through penalty, but he's in pit lane. Oh, and he's exiting. So it wasn't service. It wasn't a splash and dash. I have no idea what's going on with the number 5. We'll on that later and see if we can unravel that mystery. But we look at the 14. Watts is giving all he can to the 948 to see if he can get back onto the podium.
He's fighting for it hard, just trying to keep that power down. We see how hard it is to pass. Both cars a little bit squirrely there coming off of turn 9. But now here they come into the very important hairpin onto the binders. Watts able to close up a little bit, taking a more narrow line there through the corner. Who can get on the power faster? A little bit more steering angle there from Karl Modoff. That may hurt him. Watts really starting to charge down the straight.
But I don't know about this. It would just be a huge lunge if he tried that pass. And indeed, doesn't even attempt it as they come off of that final chicane. The 14 still going to have to do this within about 3 more laps. Felipe Ruiz crossed the line with 3.5 minutes to go.
Did indeed. Both cars wiggling there off the line. They work their way by a GTE. Watts really trying to hustle this around.
He's giving it 110% for sure. This is all happening a far distance back from our top 2. Modoff is 23 seconds behind, and oh, that's not going to help, as it looks like he was struggling through 6 and 7. He knows it. He hugs all the way to the inside and then comes back to the racing line as he sees Watts can't get beside him.
No, he can't. Owen's not really able to get the pass done there, but he gets a good exit, starts to poke his nose, licking him at the outside, coming through Pengle. Here he goes onto the binders. Watts again taking that narrow angle. Looked like he almost forced Modoff onto a different line, but Modoff able to get on the power earlier and get a little bit more speed down that back straight.
Indeed. He's just right there, but he can't seem to make anything stick. Can Modoff manage to hold on to this thing for that just little bit longer? as they whip it through the last chicane. There is some traffic coming up that you can see ahead. That's Kenny Rodriguez. Again, not battling with anybody. All he has to do is make sure that he gets out of the way at a convenient time.
He is indeed, but we're going to jump back up here to this battle for P2 in the GTEs. This is Uthman Alawi back in the catbird seat trying to chase down Michael Ross.
Oh boy, this might get personal. Alawi really wants that second place. He wants to keep Ash from getting too many points ahead in the last 2 rounds. Remember, the last race of the season cannot be used as a drop week, so only this race and the next would be able to be counted for that, and I don't think he wants to use any of those. He wants to get maximum points as they break into the final chicane as well. Neither slipping up. They are smooth as you like, and white flag is getting ready to come out behind them because Felipe Ruiz is just now coming along the pit straight.
He is, and there you can see him. And Joe, I can report very quickly that Christophe Herbeno has fallen 12 seconds back of Felipe Ruiz, so not sure what happened there to Christophe. We'll have to check back in on that in post-race, but here comes Ruiz. One more circuit around this tricky, tight track.
I found it a couple laps ago. He actually went too hot into Le Pingle, overshot it, and unfortunately lost all that time because of it. So a self-made error has meant that what was a potential win is looking very unlikely at this point. We continue to keep an eye on the battle for third and fourth rather, as they start their last lap. We'll hop over to our leader Ruiz in just a moment, but right now he's got nobody near him, so this is where all the excitement is.
It is indeed. Watts just trying to hustle that car to get up behind Modov, who's got to focus on corner exits here. Absolutely try to get everything he can out of the car. He is very close through that last sequence of chicanes as they line towards a Pingle.
We got a little bit more time to watch this, but then we'll have to duck over. Nothing doing down into the braking zone. So let's take a look at Felipe Ruiz. The number 58 withstood all he could from Christophe Herbeno and will claim victory because of it. Behind him, Herbeno trundles to the line, but we need to worry about Karl Modov because Owen Watts is still there. How desperate is he? Doesn't look like he's desperate enough. See if he can get the run off of the Wall of Champions. And no, Karl Modov with a nice podium to his name here today. But this man right here, Stephen Ash, looks like, well, I don't think Michael Ross, Michael Ross will finish on the lead lap and with him, but is the only car still on that lead lap. So it's really no contest here in the final lap. And is it just me, or is he sporting a little damage on top of things?
It is not just you, Joe. Driver's right of that Porsche looks like there's a little bit of rear wing damage, so I don't know where he picked that up.
Must have hit a curb wrong or maybe just glanced the wall. Regardless, I mean, if he's been carrying that for a while, it's amazing that he's kept his pace up as well as he has. Stephen Ash, who comes down to the final chicane, has won 2 races so far this season, including the most recent one. Didn't have to wait as long this time to get another win. Back-to-back victories for the number 11 car as Michael Ross follows him home. We are going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12-Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. This track in Montreal has put on a great race today. Up at the front of it, Felipe Ruiz found his mirrors full of Christophe Herbinot for much of the race until the very end, when Herbinot unfortunately made his own mistake and lost a lot of time. You can see in the end it was 11 to 12 seconds between the top two, and I promise you was much closer for the majority of the time. Karl Modoff was a ways back. He had to work his way through the field and take advantage of those in front of him wrecking on the first lap, but still went from 7th to 3rd. Owen Watts, another one making him work for it. He finished 4th today. Great job by him, with Tiensai Leighton finishing P5. Byron Daly was 6, up 4 positions, and Christian Eisler started on the 2nd row. He may have actually been one of the ones that caused or was seriously involved in the start of that wreck on the first lap, and well, he was only able to get back to 7th in the end. Josh Wolf was 8th, and Ricardo De Matteo, the last of the finishing LMP2s, with 9th.
Stephen Ash was able to bring that car home in P1 for the GTEs, followed by Michael Ross. Uthman Alawi gave Ross a run for his money throughout the course of that race, with Francisco Montini finishing behind them. Rafael Russo was back in 5th place in class, followed by Alessandro De Tullio. Fell back at the start, but we talked about it during that broadcast, made some absolutely spot-on moves over the course of the race. Sean Romig finished behind him, followed by Ted Lowendick, who was finally able to get by Mac Miller for 8th place, and Miller back in 9th. Tyler DeZube came home 10th, with Brian Borchi in 11th, Brett Barrett in 12th, Kenny Rodriguez 13th, and Federico Montini withdrawing from the race with a couple of laps to go in 14th in class.
It looks like we've got our winner in the GT class ready to talk to us, Stephen Ash, giving himself back-to-back wins. Stephen, congratulations on the 3rd victory of the season for you, but critically, you came in tied, and it looks like you did everything you had to today with a few bonus points along the way.
Yeah, how's it going, guys? Yeah, that was a pretty interesting race. A lot going on, really difficult around Montreal here. But this is my home track, so yeah, really happy to get the win and now take the lead in the championship for the first time this season, I think.
Oh, that's got to make this extra special then. Did you have Gilles kind of in your heart this time, kind of egging you on, making you go that little bit quicker?
Yeah, he's actually one of my all-time favorite F1 drivers. I love the way he drives, so yeah. Definitely special to get the win here. Definitely a lot of mistakes in the race. It was a tough race, a grueling race. Actually hit the wall of champions with like 4 to go. You know, sometimes when you have those big leads, it's a little difficult to really stay focused and yeah, just hit the curb too hard and hit it. But luckily, no steering damage, nothing too bad, and was able to bring it home.
Noticed a little bit of damage at the end. We wondered where that came from. That probably answers our question. The next round, when we head off to Motegi, that's another start-stop track, but in a very different way. Can you make it a hat trick?
I'm definitely hoping to, but I actually, I've never actually driven at Motegi, so it's going to be a long week of practice there. And yeah, the Porsche races pass has been pretty quick at Motegi, so hopefully we can get a good setup there going and maybe make it 3 in a row and extend that championship lead.
Well, again, congratulations on the win, and feel free to thank anybody you'd like for the victory.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'd just like to shout out FSR, Steen Ledger, my teammate Mac Miller, and the rest of the guys. Great group of guys. So, yeah, thanks so much.
That was our winner in the GT class, Stephen Ash. And it sounds like we've got Utman Alawi up next, who was third in this class, and DJ has caught up with him.
Udman, it looked like a pretty crazy race there for most of it. Really, really good battle seeming through most of the race with you and Michael Ross, but talk us through that.
Man, I've never been so disappointed to finish on the podium, but all in all, pretty good race for our RSR powered by G Performance Porsche RSR. Had a good showing, not necessarily in qualifying, but in the race, we made some good passes on the initial couple of laps, and to challenge Ross at the end in a car that isn't really suited for this track felt really nice, and overall can't complain too much. Of course, the fact that finishing third, you'd usually think that's a good place to finish, but 2 championship rivals finished ahead of me, so some good stuff to take away from this race, some bad stuff, but all in all, had a ton of fun. Can't complain too much.
Well, Uthman, I have to ask you, coming out of the pits, it looked like there was a little bit of contact going in through that second set of chicanes between you and Michael. Can you talk me through that moment?
It's just a racing deal. Ross was going to be on cold tires, so I knew that if I had to make a move on him, I had to make it right there. Got to his inside, just drifted a bit wide, and there's a bit of contact off the exit of the first part of the chicane. And that just unsettled my car, and Ross got the run off the exit of the chicane and to keep his second place. But yeah, I was surprised because Ross had a 6-7 second lead entering the pits, and to come out right behind him at the end of the pit cycle was pretty lucky. But yeah, I don't really think it changed that much in the race. All I really have to say.
No, I get that. From our perspective, I think it certainly can be attributed up to a racing incident between the two of you. Now, we just heard Stephen Ash talking a little bit about how the Porsche may not be the best suited for the next round out at Motegi. How do you feel about it?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to make Motegi, so I guess I don't really have any comments for that.
Oh, no! Well, that's going to be terrible, man. We're going to miss seeing you out there.
Right, we got the drop round. I'll be fine. Porsche's tough around Monza as well, but max attack mode. Got to win this championship somehow. And also a few partners to thank. G Performance, they're an online shop for sim racing gear. Make sure to check them out. Velasquez Engineering, they're our main funder for this series. Formula Hypersoft News on Instagram, and Butt Kicker 4D. Make sure to check them all out.
Well, thank you very much, Uthman, and congratulations again. I know it's a bit hollow, but I'd still say it's a well-deserved third place.
I mean, hey, third place at my hometown track. Can't complain too much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Uthman. And now Joe Peak has caught up with Carl Modoff.
Yeah, and Carl sure had plenty of action here today and still managed to get on the podium at the end of it. Carl, it looked like qualifying didn't quite go to plan, but other things kind of fell in your lap.
Yeah, that was qualifying was tough. I was definitely making jokes about waving at Christoph as he came around to lap me, but that was a lot of fun. You know, sometimes you start back in the middle and you get to have a lot more competition. I was kind of bummed at the start that Eisler and looked like Horatio both took themselves out, or I'm not sure what happened exactly, but I was looking forward to having kind of a bigger battle there. But yeah, that was awesome fun with Owen there, back and forth through traffic, and yeah, definitely an action-packed race for sure, as they always are in Montreal.
Notice that you had one of the shortest stops of anybody in that pit sequence. Were you attempting to save fuel or anything in there, or is that just you were that precise, or was it the iRacing luck?
Probably a little of both. iRacing luck for sure. You got the best pit crew on the iRacing service, but I was saving fuel quite a bit also for the first half of the race. Just with the GTE cars, especially here, you know, you can really save a lot of fuel if you're smart about where you catch them and where you lift and coast. So I was able to save quite a bit of fuel. for the first stint, I was surprised. I think Owen actually, I would have warned him that I was pitting, but I thought he had another, because I had like a lap and a half left to fuel. And I noticed right as I was turning in for the, sorry, I need some water. Right as I was turning in for the chicane, I noticed him get real big in my mirror. I think he almost annihilated me as I braked for the chicane as he entered the pits. But luckily I was able to pull out 3 seconds, and that gave me some comfort after the pit stop because he had good pace and ran me down, and I was able to kind of stay calm with that gap. So that really worked out, having saved a little bit of fuel there.
Well, this has been a good few races here later on in the season, both round 6 and this one, giving you some good points. So how do you feel heading off to Japan? Do you think you can keep up the momentum?
Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna approach it for fun. I got a few different series that I'm running right now, and it can sometimes be hard to just get really focused on one when you're kind of popping around. So I've been making some pit lane speeding penalties lately, which has been killing me. So those will cost you huge, and those kind of took the championship away from me. But so moving forward, we're just gonna try and work on our racecraft and have some fun. Hopefully, have some more great battles with Owen and Christoph and Philippe, those guys. So Motegi is a good track. Passing is going to be tough, but I think we'll see some tight racing for sure.
All right. Well, we look forward to that as well. That was Carl Modoff and his 948 taking third place in the LMP2s today. That is going to be it for our interviews, unfortunately. So we're going to close out and give a big thank you, of course, to our sponsors once again. If you want to be involved with Simulation Motorsports Affinity, they can be found at SIMMSA.net and try to get you hooked up with the world of sim racing. Or if you are a day trader yourself, check out NinjaTrader. Their website is very easy to remember. It's simply NinjaTrader.com. And finally, for all of your sim racing rig needs, check out Butt Kicker Products. Their website is thebuttkicker.com. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast, which are listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Her Bandcamp is listed there at the bottom where you can find more of that wonderful work. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Ryan, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media, which includes Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Also, if you'd like to support our channel, check out our merchandise store. It's simply gsrc.storeenvy.com. Link in the description below, so it's nice and easy to find that. While you're down there, make sure and subscribe so you don't miss a moment on GSRC. The next race, as we mentioned, heading off to Japan for Motegi, will be Tuesday, February 23rd at 9 p.m. Eastern, but we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar, including, in just a few moments' time, the Turn 2.0 Flying Huskies are going to be at Road Atlanta at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.